So I read the Quran recently, and I was wondering in 4:157, who is it referring to when it says even those who argue for this crucifixion? Is that referring to like Christians in general, or from a specific time period, or who's it talking about there?
It's referring to everybody that claims that they have certainty about what happened, that they don't have certainty about what happened. It's a general verse. It doesn't necessarily specifically talk about someone, but it speaks generally that whoever claims to have certainty about these events, they don't have certainty. They're just following conjecture. The verse says, وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ, and those who differed about Jesus, what happened to him, about the events, there's many differences. Even within, if you look at early Christianity, it's the same story. If you look at different Gospels, canonical and apocryphal, they all have different versions of events. So Allah says, those who differ about Jesus, about what happened to him regarding the crucifixion, لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهِ, are in doubt. مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ, they have no certain knowledge about what happened. وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا, they did not kill him for certainty. So it's saying that the people who differed about what happened to Jesus, nobody has certain information of what happened to Jesus regarding the cross, the issue with the cross. Nobody has certain information. They're different, they're disagreeing, they're all following conjecture. That is what the Quran is saying in the verse.
All right. I mean, I feel like I might just be saying the same thing, but it's so I think you're saying that like they just don't have certain information. It's not talking about how much they believe what information they think they have.
Yeah, they could think that they have certainty. It doesn't mean they do. Which is the case always with Christians, is when I talk to them about the crucifixion, they come very confident. But when we start like looking at the events, everything turns, the table turns, and they realize that they're not as certain as they thought that they were when we actually look at the evidences. So you could think you're certain, but when we look at the evidences, you realize you only are following conjecture, like the Quran says. You do not have certainty because you have no proof in regards to the event that took place.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like it comes down to like the definition of the word certainty. But I think I follow what you're saying.
Yeah. So let me ask this question. Let's move into an actual application of what the verses say. Let's ask you this question. Are you certain that Jesus was put on the cross and killed? Do you have proof, absolute certainty, meaning absolute proof, undeniable proof that this happened? Can you demonstrate that?
I don't have absolute proof about anything, so I wouldn't say so.
Oh, are you Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're speaking a bit like an atheist now. This idea of like there's an existence of certainty, right? Yeah, no, but okay. Are you certain? Are you absolutely certain there's a God?
No, I can't be absolutely certain.
So you're more on the atheist side than you are on the Christian side. Sorry to say.
That's true.
I mean,
you might be right.
Yeah, it seems like you're reading a lot of philosophy, researching philosophical things, and that's what would lead you to that statement that you just made.
However,
are you?
I was 100% certain at one point, and I do think that it is more likely to be true than most historical facts. So I would say that I'm not certain because I wouldn't say I'm certain about anything, but I'm more certain than I am about most other things historically.
Okay, let me ask you the $1 million question. Okay. Mm-hmm. Are you certain that you're not certain about anything?
Am I certain that I'm not certain about anything? Yeah.
That's what they call. Okay, so you just defeated your premise. You just defeated your premise. That's what they call a self-defeating argument. When you say I'm not certain about anything, if you are certain about that statement, then you are certain about something. And if you're not certain about that statement, then you could be certain about something. So either way, you're self-defeating your own premise. Nobody can make that claim. Nothing is absolutely true. Is that claim absolutely true? Or is it not absolutely true? So if you make that claim, it's a self-defeating statement. There must be something that is foundational that you must be certain of. And then from there, you can be uncertain in other things. For example, whether it be your existence, whether it be anything else, there must be something that you must be fully certain of.
Okay, yeah, I can accept that. I guess I am certain about some things, but anything that's based on, looking at historical records or hearing from other people about what happened, and even to some extent my own experience, can't be certain about that. But sure, I agree. Like, tautologies and self-referential logic things, yeah, I can be certain about that.
Okay. So what is the thing that is making you confident, not certain, but confident in the crucifixion, that Jesus was crucified? What is the proof for that?
So there's a few different things. I mean, yeah, we have the 4 Gospels all seem to agree. We also
so can we stop there? Can we stop there?
Sure, yeah.
Because let's start by one of these, what you would claim is evidences, for example, for the crucifixion. So first, let's talk about the 4 Gospels. Do we agree the 4 Gospels are written by anonymous authors?
For the most part, yeah. I think we can say that.
Even evangelists or textual criticism scholars would admit to that.
I think that there's
Bruce Metzger, William B. Wallace, Philip Comfort. I can mention so many names. The people who are forefront leading, defending of the Bible, not the skeptical scholars, would all admit that the writers of the Gospels are anonymous. So we agree on that. The second thing, or you disagree, you want to say something before we move on?
I think for the sake of argument, we can agree. I do think there's contextual reason to think John wrote John.
Who's John?
But I don't. John, one of the disciple whom Jesus loved, one of his disciples.
Yeah, who you're basing that on the Bible, so you can use the Bible as evidence for who John was. So I'm asking you now if it's written by anonymous authors. Do you have a definition of who John was, his name, his life, where he was born, what his community said about him, when he was born, when he died? Who's that person, John? John is just the first name. That, by the way, was added later on, which all scholars would agree. So when you say John wrote John, it assumes that we know who John was, but we don't. Hence the entire idea of the anonymity of the writers.
But isn't that true, like autobiographies in general, that we only know people through their own autobiographies? That doesn't seem unusual.
We do that in Islam. That's the difference. So in Islam, we have something called the science of men, ilm al-rijal, where every information that is transmitted from the Prophet will go through a chain of narration, individuals reporting the information, and we will have the life, the autobiography of each person in that chain, what their community said about them, their date of birth and date of death, and all of the things to do with that. So we can actually verify that this is authentic information. That's something Muslims do that nobody else does. Hence why we are certain about the things that we believe in. Hence the idea of certainty, coming back to that word. So now coming back to what I'm saying. John is the latest gospel that was written. Do you know that John essentially goes against, in its narrative, all of this, what they would call the synoptic gospels? They all have a narrative, and John has his own narrative. So that's why a lot of people will tell you he was writing what he believes. That's what scholars would say. He wasn't necessarily writing the events as per them happening, even if we were to accept what you're saying. And it is the latest written gospel. Okay? So the writers of the gospel are anonymous, number one. Number two, what is the earliest manuscripts of these written gospels?
Could be wrong, but I want to say there's parts of Mark that are pretty early.
Not parts, but the full thing. Oh, no, actually, no. Yeah, first let's start with the whole thing, then I'll talk about the parts. The whole thing, how many years do you think it's after Jesus?
Okay, that one I'm not honestly sure. I want to say probably 30. It's going to be a while.
The earliest carbon-dated manuscript that we have written is the Codex Sinaiticus, and it is nearly 400 years. It's from the 4th century. Nearly 400 years after Jesus. By the way, you're welcome to fact-check this information right now if you have a computer, if you don't believe what I say. So, this is the earliest manuscript you have. It's called the Codex Sinaiticus, and then you have the Codex Vaticanus. They're all from the 4th century. This is the earliest you have. Okay? Now, what about the fragments? The smallest, earliest thing you have is something called the P52. It's as big as a card like this from John. Doesn't have any important information, nothing relevant, nothing that can be used for belief. It's just like a random small writing. Okay? That is more than 150 years after Jesus. That's the earliest fragment you have when we talk about carbonation, which has no relevant information. The rest comes from the early 3rd century, 4th century, like I said, fragments here and there. The 4th century, you have the full thing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a Bible, which now you said the first evidence you were presenting was the Bible, the Gospels. Now, so the Gospels, number one, written by anonymous authors, hundreds of years separate from the source. So these are not eyewitnesses, random anonymous people writing information. So they cannot be proof for anything that happened historically that time.
I don't know that I would align with that. I don't know
Why
that
not?
Just because the earliest manuscripts we have in the modern era might be written in the fullest complete manuscripts in the 300, we're 300 years after. I don't know that that means that they originated at the point where we have the earliest manuscripts. Especially since we have, the pieces before
They're copies.
that.
They're copies. So they would say
Sure.
that it's a copy of a copy. Yeah, but the problem,
yeah.
the problem with that, if you don't have the source, you do not know what was copied and what wasn't copied. You do not know the reliability of copying. If the copiers, the people who copied, are anonymous, then you cannot trust the information. So even if they are copies of, by the way, they would say it's copies of copies of copies of copies. You have no clue. And we have writings from church fathers as early as the 2nd, 3rd century, like Origen of Alexandria and others, that will, by the way, they are you can say the first textual criticism scholar. And he's talking about that the corruption of scribes has spread far and wide because of the arrogance of the scribes. They're changing the writings. We're talking about in the 2nd century. So when we have something written in the 4th century, right, there is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of anonymous scribes, then absolutely it's not reliable in any way, shape, or form for us to come and say, hence the Quran's claim about conjecture. You see, the more we talk, the more we realize the Quranic claim is true. You have an anonymous writing of what we know are scribes that have been corrupting and changing, anonymous writers, hundreds of years later claiming something happened. We cannot trust this as reliable information. Nobody with his right mind is going to say, oh yeah, this is proof that this happened. So that is the first. Go ahead. Yeah, you want to say something?
I think where I kind of
say the same thing.
Oh yeah, no, we can.
No,
I think where I would kind of deviate is I'd agree that it can't be certain proof, certainly, but I also think that all these problems that you're pointing out, that's largely true for ancient manuscripts in general. You could say the same thing for the Odyssey. You could probably say the same thing for the writings of Tacitus. The possibility of copies being corrupted, that's always an issue, but we don't really apply that to such a large extent with any other volume of work. So I think like we could say that, yeah, so there might be like specific details that maybe there's a political reason to corrupt them. But as far as like general like things that seem to be making historical claims, I don't know that we could say that the fact that they've been copied so many times is inherently proof that those claims were edited any more than we would for any other document historically, if that makes sense.
Okay, so a few things. First, that's not the case with the Quran and Islamic scripture. So for us, sure, when we talk about, so then you cannot say that this is the case for random things. Yeah, random writing is not about salvation and eternal hellfire in heaven. It's okay. You can have a bit of doubt here and there whether Aristotle said this or not, whether Alexander the Great said this statement or he had these sexual tendencies or all of this stuff. You can have doubts about these things. You can have all of these. Nobody cares because it's not your eternal afterlife. But if you're coming to me and saying this was someone who's coming to die for the sins of the world in which you will have salvation, you need to give me absolute proof. So I would reject that, what you're saying, because now we're talking about a scriptural evidence in relation to the idea of God. Now, if I were to ask you a question, if someone writes about your life 400 years later, copying from someone, we do not know who is being copied from because we do not know who they were. We have sources that says that people were corrupting scripture and the scribes are corrupting scripture from the own believers themselves, from your own friends saying that people were corrupting scripture. Then we find this document 400 years written by an anonymous author about your life. Would you say that we can rely on this document as an accurate description of the events that happened in your life?
I think if it aligned with all the other documents from, even if they were from anonymous
no. But before that point, no, let's remove that. If there is no other documents, we're just speaking hypothetically. Would that on its own be proof?
I mean, it would be evidence. I wouldn't say that it's outright proof.
Evidence for what?
Well, for the events described in the document, right? Now, I think
I'm saying, is it evidence for what you did in your life? Is it an accurate description? Yeah. Can we rely on this as an accurate description for what you did in your life?
You can't rely on it absolutely, but you if you had a document and it was copied down over the generations from somebody that did see
you do not know who
allegedly.
Sorry, you do not know who you're copying, and you do not know if it's true that it was copied because you have no proof for it.
I don't know. So, I think we're going back to, are they anonymous? I'm not sure that they are fully anonymous because they are, again, attributed to, not again, sorry, I didn't say that. They are attributed to Jesus' disciples. So it's not fully anonymous. They didn't believe that they were copying anonymous manuscript. Sure.
Are you familiar? Look, nobody knows who Mark was, who Luke was, who Matthew was, who John was. That's what anonymous means by definition. Now, I don't think, are you familiar with Christian textual criticism? Are you familiar with
probably more familiar with
criticism? Yeah, do you know any names that are strong on the scene? Do you know any names that you can give me?
No, I don't really care about.
But that's the problem, Connor. But that's the problem. But that's the problem, Connor. When I have these conversations, people are not familiar with these. For example, if you were to Google now, who are the textual criticism scholars? Google it right now. Who are the most popular textual criticism scholar, for example? Christian textual criticism scholar. Defenders of the Bible, not like the agnostic ones, because it'll probably bring you Bart Ehrman, who definitely says the writers of the gospel are anonymous. So other than Bart Ehrman, What are the names that are gonna show up for you if you search that?
Popular criticism scholars defenders.
Textual criticism. Textual criticism.
Textual criticism defenders.
Christian scholars, yeah.
Christian. Okay, well, I'll try. Textual criticism Christian scholar.
Yeah.
See what we get.
Who are the most popular ones?
I think you mentioned Daniel B. Wallace. Daniel B. Wallace and Peter J. Gurry.
There you go. So the people I mentioned, why did I let you Google? Because when I mention these things, people say, oh, this guy's just bringing some. No, I'm not. I'm bringing you what they would call today the leading expert. So Daniel B. Wallace would be probably the most popular today on the sea when it comes to textual criticism scholar in defense of the Bible. Okay? He would explicitly tell you that the writers of the Gospels are anonymous. Then you have his mentor, teacher, Bruce Metzger, who set the foundation for, you can say, modern textual criticism scholar. He was the mentor of Daniel B. Wallace. Bruce Metzger is, you can say, one of the most famous people, if not the most famous individual. He says the same thing. Philip Comfort is one other scholar that Bruce Metzger would quote in his writings. He would rely on his work. He would say the same exact thing, that these names, it's not only anonymous, these names were added later on. They would say, why were they added? So they can differentiate the Gospels. Because if the Gospels have no names, how can you differentiate one from the other? So they put these names later so you can differentiate between the writers of the Gospels. You're welcome to also Google. Again, look, you don't have to believe me. You're welcome to Google right now. Does Daniel B. Wallace or does Bruce Metzger, does Phil Comfort say the writers of the Gospel are anonymous? If you don't believe me, do it right now. It will show you with absolute certainty that these people say this. Which, by the way, I have a video on my channel which I highlighted that. Yeah?
This might be feeding it to your claim that I sound more like an atheist. But I don't necessarily consider, like, if there's a big Christian defender that they think it's anonymous, I don't consider that intrinsic evidence that it actually is. Do you happen to know?
No, it's not a big Christian defender. This is a textual criticism scholar. So a textual criticism scholar is not just a Christian scholar. It's a scholar that examines and studies manuscripts, Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, and then rely on the evidence, i.e. the manuscripts, as proof for what they say. So I'm not bringing you some random, just because this guy is a Christian and he says it, therefore it's true. No. I'm bringing you the experts in the field. And when I say there's Christian scholars, because I'm telling you they want to defend the religion. They don't want to attack the religion. So if they themselves tell you that, and they are the experts in that field and the leading experts today, then they know what they're talking about. Of course, if I go to the agnostic ones, like I said to you, whether it's Bart Ehrman or others that I can bring, that is very easily, you'll be like, oh, these guys are agnostic, they left Christianity or whatever. I'm not bringing you these people. They already say this, which is true. But I'm telling you, even the people on the other side say the same thing. This is an agreed upon thing today. We know that the writers of the Gospels are anonymous. Now, you said, again, so coming back to my example, because now you kind of, from the example, you're like, okay, we're not sure. No, here we highlighted that we know, based on the literature, based on the evidence, based on the manuscripts, based on the scholarship, it is anonymous. So I'm going to ask you the question again. If there is a written thing 400 years after you're written by anonymous authors and describes things that happen in your life, your own friends say, or some people that your grandchildren or whatever say that the people who are corrupting information about you, lying about you, fabricating about you, can we trust this random anonymous document? 400 years, you know how 400 years is not, it's a long time, 400 years written about your life as a representation of what you said and did. Can that be taken as proof?
No, if it's totally anonymous and there's evidence that it's corruption, if people have no idea.
Thank you. Let me add you to that. By the way, what I'm doing right now, I'm going to even add you more cherries on the cake, right? You said political reasons and changing or whatever. Daniel B. Wallace and others will tell you that by the way, every manuscript we have, because you talked about them aligning with each other, every manuscript we have is corrupted to an extent. That's a statement of Daniel B. Wallace. There's no perfect manuscript. And every single manuscript contradicts with each other. So you talk about now the reliability, right? No, they're contradictory. They disagree with each other. And Daniel B. Wallace affirms that the changes the scribes were doing were intentional. They were not accidental errors. They found contradictions between, for example, Mark and Matthew, because Matthew was copying from Mark, which makes no sense, because Mark came after Matthew, which shows you that the authors, like I said, it's anonymous. It's not written by Matthew. It's not written by Mark. But whatever the Gospel of Mark, whoever the writer of it, the writer of Matthew is copying from him. So when they found contradictions, the scribes found contradictions, they tried to harmonize between these contradictions, so they changed the writing, the text. This is the statement of Daniel B. Wallace by himself, by the way. And other scholars, of course, they say the same thing. So these scribes are intentionally changing and corrupting the writings. The manuscripts are contradicting each other. So anybody who comes and says, I use the Gospels as proof for what Jesus did, I'm sorry to say, have not done any proper investigation when it comes to reliability of those scriptures and evidences. Now, is that it? Let me add you another cherry on the cake. I'm showing you basically that it's hopeless to use these Gospels as evidence. The Gospel accounts disagree with each other when it comes to the crucifixion. There are contradictions. There are discrepancies between those writers of these in relation to the story of the crucifixion. So if this is the case, then how can we rely when we have those people, they even disagree with each other, let alone the anonymity, let alone the corruption of manuscripts, let alone all of these issues that I already highlighted, which is more than enough. Even these accounts, if you were to take them, they're contradictory with each other. If you want to look, for instance, few examples, for example, when exactly the day that Jesus was crucified, the day that he rose, or the rock when they came to see the tomb of Jesus, was there a rock, an angel took it, or was there no rock, an angel? All of these accounts are contradictory to each other. They say things that are opposite to each other. So how can we rely on this?
Just to clarify, my claim isn't that the four Gospels are infallible or that they are all completely aligned on every detail. It's just that those four Gospels are most likely written about an event they all experienced. And so we're saying that are the general details of what they happened likely to be true? Not saying are they verbatim exactly the correct, because that's not necessarily what we would say for any other historical document, right? We wouldn't say because Tacitus said something happened in a battle, it must have happened exactly that same way. But if we're saying, did that battle happen, then we would cite Tacitus, even if we thought that there was some corruption to the manuscript. It's more like
Would you agree what you just said is a definition of conjecture?
Definition of conjecture?
Assumption.
How so?
That you're assuming that these events may be true, may be right. You have conjecture about them. You're not certain.
No, how? Oh, yeah, I'm not certain, but I said that previously,
okay.
Right?
So does that affirm what we started with, the Quran, in reference to the people that claim about the event of Jesus and the crucifixion, that they have no absolute proof for what they're claiming, and they're only following conjecture? Is that in line with what the verse of the Quran says or no?
Well, I would say no, because I'm answering as I think right now. I right now don't think that it was certain, but I did previously. Now, you're correct that previously there was an element of conjecture.
Remember, Connor, we highlighted that the verse of the Quran doesn't talk about people's beliefs. It talks about the reality of events. The Quran, God is speaking about reality. Reality, nobody has proof. So I'm not talking about what you used to believe. I'm saying, is the Quran accurate in its description that in reality, nobody has proof for this event? Absolute proof that they can present. Evidences that is, like, for example, eyewitnesses that were alive with Jesus, that recorded the events, that we can trace and know who these individuals are. Nobody has that. If nobody has that, then this event is only conjecture, only assumptions written by unknown anonymous authors. You said you're not saying that everything is there is 100% true as is described. I'm telling you that we have evidence that it should be doubted, which is all of these corruptions, all of these contradictions, and all of these discrepancies. So I'm not telling you you're making the claim that everything is right. I'm telling you we cannot trust it because it's anonymous, contradictory, and we have evidences that people were corrupting.
Okay, so I think that, like, we're going off on the tangent of, is it true? So I think my original question was just, is it saying that people don't doubt it? It sounds like you're saying no. It's just saying, is it true or not? And saying that we can't trust the four Gospels because they're anonymous. Which, like, defers the question to, is it actually fully anonymous? Which I'm not sure that I like.
No, I'm sorry, Connor, but now we're going in a circle. I mean, what else can I do? If I present you... Yeah, because what's happening, Connor, with all due respect, you ask me a question, I provide you evidence. You say, I'm not sure about this, but you provide no counter argument or counter evidence. So you cannot have a discussion that way. If you disagree with something I say, well, after I present you evidence, scholarship and manuscripts, then you need to present some sort of evidence to support your claim. You need to give reasons of why we would trust any information found in these Gospels that are hundreds of years later. You're the one who needs... It's not upon me, by the way, to cast shadows on these issues, but it's upon you to present the evidence that these things are actually reliable, because you're the one making the claim. I highlighted to you, when you mentioned them, here's all of the issues that you have. You have nothing of substance. You have nothing of proof. You have nothing you can present. And you have all of these issues. And you have presented no evidence, Connor. So the issue is, you can't just say, coming back to the same point after I answered there, that we're not sure if it's anonymous, but we went on a few minutes describing why it's anonymous, why scholars say it's anonymous, the issues, and then you come back again. But we're not sure it's anonymous. If we're not, then you have to present someone who said so. And what's their evidence that they're not anonymous? Because like I said to you, scholarship agrees on this. It's not something that, if you're not familiar with scholarship, I mean, that's an issue. That means you got to go do some research study. And then after that, you can come to your conclusion. But if you're not familiar, I've given you the scholarship. And I told you, welcome to research the names. I've given you the information. I told the claims I made about these people. You yourself research and you got the name that I told you. I didn't put that name in Google, you know? I don't have the control to just go hack into your computer and make Google answer, you know, the way I want. No, but it's the fact that what I was telling you is reliable information, okay? So now, this is what you have the Gospels. What else do you have as proof? Any type of proof for the crucifixion. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you the question. How do you explain the contradictions in the stories regarding the crucifixion in these Gospels? Isn't that proof that these people were writing false information because they're describing contradictory events?
I mean, I think it would just be like if you had a car accident and then people had slightly different takes on what happened in the car accident. If there's a person walking by that was wearing a red shirt or a person walking by wearing a white shirt. If anything, it proves that they weren't necessarily corroborating their sources. Sorry,
sure.
Plotting to go together. So yes, it is good evidence that it cannot be verbatim true, but it's also equally good evidence that they were all reacting to something independently insofar as they contradict, rather than, you know, trying to align them or being corrupted by the same person.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask this question. If one narration of the event says there was a person that came to saw the car accident, and another version says there was no person that came.
A person that came to stole the car, and then another person that said no person came. So
yeah, for example.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Now, that's not as wearing a white and yellow shirt. These are the type of contradiction I'm talking about. That the existence of a character, for example, the non-existence of a character. So if somebody came and said that there was a person and another person writing saying there was no person, one of them has to be true. It's impossible for these two events to have to be true. Since we have no way to verify, we cannot know if there was a person or if there was no person. And if we cannot know if there was a person or there's no person, we cannot trust that story.
I'd agree that you can't trust whether there was a person or there was not a person. But I think if we got 4 sources, and you're right, we are kind of going in circles, and we could tangent on his.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Connor, like I'm telling you, if they disagree on the day he was crucified or the day he was buried or the day he resurrected, these are essential details with the story. If they disagree when people came and saw him in the tomb, there was a rock and an angel came down and moved it, or there was no angel whatsoever when the woman came, it's impossible for these two things to be true. So all of these events, like if you look at the details of the crucifixion, all of them contradictory. Not only that, let me add you, we find in the writings of these two people descriptions that actually there was no car accident, while another thing is saying there was a car accident.
There's what? So the car accident in this scenario is the crucifixion. You're saying that
Yes.
there's sources that
I'm claiming if you read the Bible, if you read the Bible, you see events in the Old and New Testament that verifies that there was no crucifixion, actually, that refutes the idea of the crucifixion.
That is an interesting idea. I would love support that I assume you have.
Okay, sure. I'll give you an example. But you see, my point is, people who don't study, Connor, can accept something. But if you reflect, study, do investigation, do you realize that things are a lot more different than people think they are? So I'll give you an example. Do you know the story where people come to Jesus and ask him for a sign? And Jesus says to the Pharisees, and he says to them, that adulterous generation or evil generation, or whatever, you shall have no sign except the sign of Jonah. Okay? So he says, I'll give you here one sign, the one sign that you'll get. The sign of Jonah. Just as he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, whatever, I will be in the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. Okay? So here, he says, I'll give you the same sign of Jonah. I will be in the belly of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, my question is, he will say, just as Jonah did this, I'm going to do the same sign. This is a sign I'm going to give you. Someone will say, oh, look, this is proof for the crucifixion. No, we're going to see now. Is it proof for the crucifixion? I'm going to ask the question. What was the sign of Jonah?
I mean, he's referring to when he was eaten by a fish,
yes,
and then put it out. But
what was the sign then? Yeah. What was the miracle when he was in the belly of the whale? What was the miracle? Was he dead or alive?
Ah, good. Yeah, he was alive.
That's the miracle. If he died, there's no miracle. Of course, he was eaten by a whale and he died, which will happen to any human being. He was alive in the belly of the whale, and that was the miracle that God has given him. So if Jesus says, just as Jonah was, the same way he was, in the belly of the whale, I'll be in the belly of the earth. Does that mean then that Jesus is saying he's going to be dead or alive in the grave?
If you take that to be what he means there, then that would mean that he's alive, rather than saying that he re-emerged from the fish, which I think you could also say was the sign.
No, but he said, I'll give you the sign of Jonah. So
he doesn't
if Jonah... Yeah, so if Jonah...
Sorry. Yeah.
No, but we look at the sign and we copy. So he says, just he was in the belly, just as he was in the belly. He didn't say after the belly. He says, just as he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, I will be. So the same way he was, I will be. So it's talking about him being in the belly specifically. That's what Jesus is referring to as his sign. So you can't say, oh, that's referring to after he came out. No, he said just as he was. So if he was alive, as you agreed with me, then we have to say that Jesus is saying his sign, because humans cannot be in a grave for 3 days and 3 nights alive, in a grave, in a tomb. So he's saying, I'll give you the same sign. He was alive in the belly of the whale. I would be alive in the grave. So I'll say that is one evidence, but I'll give you more, by the way. It's just one example. Number 2, evidence. I'm using the own scripture, which you say are the narration of the events. You have Matthew quoting prophecies about Jesus. He quotes multiple prophecies from the Psalms, right? If you look at the Psalms, there's multiple prophecies that are being quoted. These prophecies, if you look at these Psalms, for example, Psalms 91, do you know what it says? Which Matthew would quote in reference to Jesus. When, in Matthew chapter 4, when Satan came and he was trying to tempt Jesus. Then Jesus quotes, or Satan actually quotes, that God says about you that he will protect you. So he's quoting Psalms 91. He's quoting a verse from Psalms 91 as a prophecy about Jesus. You read Psalms 91. Do you know what it says? It says that God will answer all the prayers of Jesus. He will protect him. No harm shall befall him. If he calls upon God to save him, God will save him. He will send angels to protect him and surround him and lift him up. So did Jesus call upon God to save him from the crucifixion?
No, he asked why God forsook him, and then asked him.
No, actually, that is actually proof for what I'm saying. Because why would he say, if I say you forsake me, then I asked for you for help, but you didn't. That's why I'm saying, why did you forsake me? Jesus said, Father, take this cup away from me. So here, the cup is signifying the crucifixion. This is before he was on the cross. Then when he wasn't saved, according to the narrative, he said, why have you forsaken me? Because he prayed for saving. So why did you forsake me? You're supposed to save me. Why did you leave me on the cross? So here,
there's a critical detail there that he does say, take the cup away from me, but then says, but not my will, but your will. And then later in the narrative, he tells the disciples that he could have angels there, but didn't. So this isn't like God not listening.
But my question, did he ask to be saved from the crucifixion?
If it was the Father's will, yes. But that's an important qualifier, though.
He said, Father, take this cup away from me. Let it be your will, but not my will. But did he say, take this cup away from me? Or he wouldn't be praying for anything there. Okay, so if he prayed for God and said, Father, take the crucifixion away from me, according to the Bible, then whenever Jesus calls upon God, God will answer him. He says, by the way, Jesus also says that in the story of Lazarus, when he resurrects him or whatever, he looks up to heaven and he speaks to God and say, thank you for always listening to me. I know you always hear me and answer me, basically, when I pray to you. So, and that's also the same thing that the Psalms are saying. They're all affirming that when Jesus asks God for help or pray to him or ask him for something, that God is going to give him that thing. So the narrative of the Psalms 91 is that God is going to save Jesus. It's all about saving. You want to read it? You're welcome to open Psalms 91.
That part's not the issue. The issue more is that he subservients his request to the will of the Father and then calls attention to exactly what you're saying, that he could have angels there later. So he brings attention to the fact that he could do that, which means he's specifically not doing that. And he's not doing that because of what comes after when he asks God to save him. It's because I'm talking about now Psalms 91, which is quoted about Jesus, specifically saying that Jesus is going to be protected by God and no harm will befall him and God will save him. That's specifically what Psalms 91 is saying. Not just about calling upon God, but about saving Jesus. So if you read it, for example, it says, the Lord is my refuge. And if you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent.
For he will command his angels to protect you, to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so you will not strike your foot against a stone. Not you're going to be stripped naked, cut open, and stabbed and spat upon. Even hitting a stone with your feet, God is not going to allow this to happen.
Why would we?
So because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in his trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation, saving, essentially. So I cannot be more clear than this. So now, was Jesus protected? No harm befell him, as God promises in this psalm, which is quoted in Matthew about Jesus? Was he rescued and delivered and no harm fell him and he lived a long life? Did that happen? Or did he forsake him, which is the opposite of Psalms 91, which is these authors are reporting? This is the contradictory events that I'm telling you here. So when I say to you that these Gospels, you can clearly read them to see that the protection of Jesus is going to be there and the saving of Jesus can be there. I'm not telling you that they don't also have the opposite. Remember, because you're trying to bring me evidences that it says the opposite. I'm telling you that they are contradictory events. Remember what we were saying. I wasn't making the argument that there is no description of the crucifixion. There is. But I'm making the argument that I can show you the opposite of it as well. Hence the contradiction in the reporting of the story. Hence the untrustworthiness of these authors.
I agree that Satan quotes that Psalms as literally applying to Jesus. Why would we interpret his interpretation to be correct? That it's definitely talking about Jesus and it's definitely literal.
Yeah, because Jesus did not correct him. He said that God is saying this about you, and Jesus affirmed that. He went with that narrative. Jesus was like, no, this is not about me. No. Jesus affirmed that narrative, and by the Christian scholars believe in that. Like Christians in generally believe that Psalms 91 is about Jesus. But they don't read it. They just don't read it. That's how I'm saying if you read it, you're like, okay, we have an issue here. The issue is like that. Matthew, by the way, he would, this is Matthew, whoever the author of Matthew is, this was his methodology. He would look at any statement that Jesus made, and then he was going to look in the Old Testament. If Jesus says, I like potatoes, he found the statement in the Old Testament says, I like potatoes. He's like, oh, look, it's a prophecy about Jesus. Because the same statement here is the same statement there. That's what Matthew, this is his methodology when he talked about Jesus. And the issue now you start seeing is, look, all of these prophecies, when you start looking at them, you start investigating them, you see all of them talking about protection. And by the way, you know, this is exactly the Islamic narrative. That Allah protected Jesus, saved him, rescued him, as the Psalms 91 is saying. And Allah raised him up, like the verses are saying. Delivered him, gave him safety, salvation. He raised him up, and nobody crucified him. These are the verses of the Quran that you were quoting in the beginning. That's what it says. So it agrees with the Islamic description here of the events that will happen to Jesus. However, now here's my point. My point is very simple. Already established why we wouldn't trust what the Gospels say. But then I added you that their narrative is contradictory and not in minor details like whether he's wearing shoes today or he's wearing one flip-flop or he was wearing sneakers. No, it's talking about the specific important details of the event, the essential details of the event, and we have contradictions and we have issues. Now, also, we have the same issue, by the way, with the day that Jesus died and the day that Jesus risen. Because remember, 3 days and 3 nights. If you look at it, Thursday night or whatever, and Sunday dawn time, it wasn't 3 days and 3 nights. And you look at other Gospels, they would give different events. About Saturday, was it Friday? Was it Friday? Was it Thursday? Was it Saturday? They all are given different events. We don't even know when he was crucified, if he was crucified. When he is risen, if we know if he was risen. They're all given different events. When he rose, did people see a rock there or they didn't see a rock? Look, honestly, if people are honest with themselves and they read the story, realize how much contradictions are in the scriptures that are not even proof on their own, even if we were to accept that they were consistent. But they're not consistent.
That's okay. I'll just do a thought experiment. As a side, I'm still not convinced on the Psalms and Jonah thing. We can go back if we want, but we probably don't. But if we let's
start. Can you give me why you're not convinced about Jonah? Let's start with the first one.
Okay. Why Jonah, there's 2 reasons. One, he's talking to a crowd, and Jesus states at different points that when he talks to crowds, he doesn't speak directly. He speaks allegorically. So we know that context is...
Sorry, can I stop you there? No, he's specifically speaking to the Pharisees and saying that you will not get any sign except this sign. So is Jesus lying or saying the truth when he says, I will give you this sign?
He's speaking allegorically because he's speaking in a context that he says he only speaks allegorically, right?
No, I disagree. If you say he's speaking allegorically, there has to be something ambiguous in the text. There's nothing ambiguous there. It's clear text.
Oh, there is. No, I mean, like you said, how was that a sign for him to go into the fish and come out? Was it a sign because he was kept alive? Was it a sign because he came out, or was he alive?
No, the sign of Jonah is mentioned in the book of Jonah already. So it's known to the people.
It's in Jonah, but why was that a sign? Is it a sign because he survived being tossed into the water? Is it a sign because he emerged from the fish and people don't emerge from fishes that swallow them? There is ambiguity.
No, okay. So if someone swallowed by a fish and he died, and then the fish threw up that individual after, okay, is that a sign? We're talking today if that happens.
Thrown up? Probably not. No.
Okay, so there's no sign there if what you're saying is happened, because by the way, that can happen. That can happen. A lot of fish can eat something. It can have a disturbance, and they can throw up what they ate. It's not like it's something crazy. Like it can happen where someone can be eaten by a fish and then being thrown out after. But none of that is a sign, really.
Sure, but if we take the same logic, though, if Jesus was like, if we're saying that the operative part is that Jonah was alive and he went into the fish and then he came out, it wouldn't be a sign if that was true in Jesus's case either. If he was alive going into the tomb and then came out of the tomb, that wouldn't be a sign either.
It would be. No, it would be. If you are if I put you in a tomb for 3 days and 3 nights, can you survive? You will die. No water, no food for 3 days and 3 nights. You will die. In the tomb, there's like you're closed up under the sand. You will die. What are you talking about? Of course you will die.
I think it kind of depends. That gets into like some assumptions though, and like how is it for sure a vacuum sealed tomb? I feel like that gets a little too specific.
Come on, Connor. Now we're being very semantic now. Of course it's a sign.
Yeah.
If I close you in a tomb, no oxygen, no water, no food, you're going to die. No air because you're closed up. That's what tombs were at the time. You don't bury people in open fields, right? You put someone in under the earth, you close off the tomb, you're going to die. No human being can survive in a tomb.
But does
for 3 days and 3 nights?
More like less specifics involved if all he's saying is that he was put into a situation, where people would die and then he emerged from it. He was dead to the world and then he emerged from the world, and nobody else does that, really. That seems more of a sign.
He survived for 3 days and 3 nights in a situation which nobody can survive, and that's a miracle and a sign, of course.
Right, which could either be him dying or him coming back. The operative part is that he's in a situation that nobody survives and he comes out. It's not really the method of transit.
No.
And it's all the point anyway, because it's an allegory.
No, Connor, it cannot be him dying because we already refuted that by saying that he's going to do the same sign of Jonah, and the sign of Jonah wasn't that he was dying. So I already refuted that possibility by saying that he says, just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale, I will be the same way. So since he says, just as he was, I will be, we can exclude this idea of him being dead.
Do you disagree that when Jesus speaks to crowds, not his disciples, that he's speaking with parables and allegories rather than directly?
I disagree that every time, yes. I disagree that sometimes he can be, sometimes he's not. Because the Christians will always use what he says to the Pharisees as proof. For example, he says, I and the Father are one. Oh my God, look, he was speaking to the Pharisees, I and the Father, therefore he's God. None of them will come and say, oh, look, this is an allegory that is actually understood in that way. Christians will look at this. There is no rule, okay? Because he was speaking to the Pharisees there, by the way. In the same thing in John chapter 8, almost all the verses they use to say that Jesus claiming divinity is in context of him speaking to the Pharisees. So if you want to claim that every time Jesus speaks to the Pharisees, which was his mission, to call the children of Israel, essentially, then everything Jesus says was an allegory. Then we can never understand what he was saying.
But what's the problem with interpreting those as allegories, in your opinion?
The problem is that you don't have a methodology of interpretation. Anybody can come up with any understanding that they want. So we cannot, the text is meaningless. If we cannot get methodology of getting meaning from the text, everybody can interpret their own way, then it's a meaningless text. We cannot know what God wants from us.
Except when he's talking,
which is most of his mission, essentially, to speak to the Pharisees. Oh yeah, you're making it seem like it was like once or twice. He was literally says, I was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He was going to preach to them his entire life. That's his entire mission. So when you come and say, oh, only when you're talking to them, makes no sense.
Well, no, because he says he speaks directly to his disciples, and then he sends out his disciples.
Anyways, look, Connor, I think we're just going in. Honestly, but I'm going to be honest with you, Connor. you're being very semantical. And I think things are very, you're being very semantical. If you don't want to accept something, I think it's very clear. It's very clear. I think if we approach like 100 people and present the discussion that we had, they will agree that this is not, that clearly there's contradictions in the narratives, that clearly these things cannot be trusted. And clearly it makes perfect sense for anybody to say, I cannot trust any of this information that is found in relation to the crucifixion of Jesus. But you can be in denial if you believe in something. That's a different story, though.
Do you want me to give you the hypothetical that I kind of got detracted from?
The hypothetical that what?
Okay, so I mean, here's kind of just like the mental thing I would use. If we had 4 sources on the assassination of Julius Caesar, and the 4 sources, and that's all we had for a while, and the 4 sources disagreed on the day that it happened, and they disagreed on the exact number of people in the room, would it then be reasonable to say we have no basis to say Julius Caesar was assassinated?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
If we had 4 anonymous sources that said Julius Caesar was assassinated, but they disagreed on similar details. They disagreed on the number of people in the room, and they disagreed on the exact day that he was assassinated. Is it then correct to say we have no evidence that Julius Caesar was assassinated?
If all of these people are anonymous and come hundreds of years separate from Julius Caesar, and they have all of these discrepancies in the details of the stories, we can say, yes, we have no conclusive proof or evidence that Julius Caesar was assassinated.
Well, okay, let's draw an analogy. Let's say all 4 of them are...
Plus, by the way, I have... yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Say all 4 of them are named after people that are alleged to be present there, but we have, like in this case, we have scholars saying, well, we think that they're actually anonymous. Even if we have scholars saying that they're actually anonymous, is it still correct to say, oh, there's no evidence here?
Scholars are saying they're anonymous, but these scholars are saying these names were added later on to distinguish these people from each other. Yeah, still, that's not proof for anything because it's just added later on.
Okay. Well, that's consistent. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know in Islam, you'd be shocked about how rigorous we are when it comes to our tradition. I'm giving you the ground of all of these things that I believe have no historical evidence or bearing. But if you look at Islam, we would reject a narration. If we have narrations, let's say we have 4 narrations, saying a specific story about Prophet Muhammad and an event that happened. Okay? Now, these narrations have 2 narrations or 3 narrations, and they have multiple people reporting, people who met the Prophet, and then people reporting from them. But for one rendition of the story and one group of people narrating, we have one person that is missing. So there is a missing link between 2 people. They couldn't have met each other. There must be some missing person that communicated the information. And in another rendition of the story, someone had weak memory. And in another rendition of the story, one person was a liar. But there's like 4 or 5 other people or 6 people narrating in each rendition of the story. To us, this is a weak story. Even though we have 3 people. Yeah, and that is a million times stronger than what you're describing right now, which is nobody who is present reporting the information, anonymous people. No. I'm telling you, we know who these people are. And we have all of these people reporting the thing. But still for us, we would reject that as a weak rendition of the story.
Right. Yeah, no, I'd agree that if you have multiple sources and everything, and you have the clear line of communication, then that's a good historical position relative to other things. I wouldn't object to that.
Yeah, and in this case, you don't have. So you cannot, basically, all I'm saying is as simple as this. No Christian could come to me and say, I have proof that Jesus was crucified. Or come to me and say that the Quran is false because it says that Jesus wasn't crucified. I say, okay, you provide your proof first. There's convincing, there's objective, that Jesus was crucified. If all you have is stories of conjecture, anonymous authors, contradictory accounts, then you're proving what the Quran says. That's all you have is conjecture and assumptions, and you have no proof.
Okay, I guess, yeah, we're going in circles, so we could end. But just to clarify, I wasn't saying that the Quran is false because it disagrees that Jesus is crucified. But I was more just asking.
I know you're not. Yeah, I know you're not. Yeah, I know you're not.
Okay.
But there's many Christians that say that.
Oh, okay. I can't speak for that.
Yeah. No. There's many Christians. That's why I said if a Christian comes, that's what I mean by that, because many of them come and try and use this as evidence, right? So here, you asked specifically about this verse, and you see how this verse fits exactly the factual history and the statements of scholarship and observation of manuscripts. And this statement is 1,400 years ago. But when you look at the evidences, you realize that exactly what the Quran is saying. In this, it's a part of a verse. It's one statement in an entire verse an entire book. But it's so profound when you examine the evidences. All right, I'm going to give you, like, if you have another question that you may want to ask before I move on to the next person. You have any other question that you want to ask?
Yep. Oh, good. Thanks.
All right. So why don't you investigate Islam a little bit? Have you read the Quran?
I have.
You have. So do you have any issues with Islam that's preventing you from being a Muslim?
Well, so this one is a significant one. The general, in general, I still have to think about a lot of it, but it's mostly in a vague sense that it seems to be trying to interact with Christianity, but the concepts that's interacting with, like, for example, the Trinity, and then here with the crucifixion, they don't seem to be what Christians actually believe in necessarily. And
so when the Quran says, yeah, so do the Christians believe in the crucifixion?
Well, yeah.
Does the Quran say that the people believe in the crucifixion, including Christians included, that they are believers in the crucifixion?
I'm not sure. I mean, here it says, yeah, this is going to be a much longer and convoluted conversation.
No, it does. It does. That's the point I'm making. It does. That's why it denies the crucifixion.
Oh, where
it does?
Where does it?
Because the verse of the Quran, the same verse that you're reading, it says, and they're saying that we killed the Messiah, Jesus. So it's talking here about the people who claim they killed the Messiah, Jesus. And then the Quran says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ, did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. And the Quran says it appeared to them so. So they thought, people believed. So there would be people who wrote that Jesus was crucified, because there's people who thought this. So it's not only saying that the people are making this claim, it's saying that it appeared to people so. So people will be even convicted in it. And then it refutes the claim by saying that they're not certain about this. There's no proof for it. And they certainly did not kill him. So the Quran says that they believe it. The Christians say they believe it. So the Quran is accurately describing what they believe in. The Quran says that they believe that Jesus is divine or God. The Christians believe that Jesus is divine or God. The Quran says that they believe in three. Right?
From what I remember, and I could, so we are getting into more of subjective territory where I'm going to be more, just giving impressions. But from what I remember, the Quran more phrased it like Jesus, like Christians believe that Jesus is a God. From what I recall, rather than being God himself, which is
different. No. It says they say that Jesus is Allah. So the one true God, essentially. لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله هو المسيح ابن مريم. Those who said Allah is Jesus, the son of Mary, have committed disbelief. Explicitly clear in the Quran, this verse. So it's not saying a God. No, it's saying that they say is Allah, like God himself, basically. The one true God.
Okay, well, the one that I'm thinking said that people took Jesus and Mary as gods besides Allah.
Yeah, but this has nothing to do with the Trinity, though. It's a separate verse, has nothing to do with the Trinity.
Right, who's
only confused Christians try to link this up with the verses that talk. Well, there are a couple of other verses that talk specifically about the Trinity. Mention nothing to do with Mary, but they go to that verse, which is saying that Christians took Jesus and Mary as gods beside Allah. And they say, it's talking about the Trinity. There's nothing in the verse that talks about the Trinity. So that specific verse,
what group would it be talking about if it's not talking about Christians?
It's talking about, for example, Roman Catholics that call Mary the Mother of God, that pray to Mary. In Islam, this is worship. Worship is calling upon anybody dead. So all the saints that also the Catholics pray to is worship in Islam. Praying to a dead saint is worship. But specifically Mary, they say she's the Mother of God, Holy Mother. They have prayers where they specific prayers for Mary, where they ask her for help, ask her for need, pray to her, whatever. This is worship in Islam.
Catholics are Trinitarian too, though. If it's talking about Catholics, why would it not be? Why would the Son of God part not be, or why would Jesus not being a God be referring to the Trinity in that case, if it's talking about Catholics?
Because even though the Catholics believe in the Trinity, they also believe they give divinity, a form of divinity, to Mary. But they don't include Mary. But they don't include Mary in the Trinity. So the statement of the Quran that they worship Mary is correct, and the other statement that talks about they believe in the Trinity is also correct, because the two statements are correct. There's no contradictions.
Okay, yeah. So just
it will only be a contradiction. It will only be a contradiction if the Quran speaks about the Trinity and says that Mary is a part of the Trinity, which the Quran never does.
All right, I'm just saying, if we're saying that passage is talking about Catholics, and then it says, do not say that Jesus
Catholics are an example. Yeah, Catholics are an example. Anybody who prays to Mary, worships Mary, is included in that verse.
Okay, so you're saying it's not necessarily talking about a specific group. It's kind of just a general mix of groups kind of a thing?
It's talking about a belief that some Christians hold. That belief is to worship, to worship Mary. Obviously, they worship Jesus, but they also worship Mary. So this is highlighting now another wrong belief that the Christians have. So the Quran is highlighting a multitude of different beliefs the Christians have. For example, they're insulting of prophets and attributing deficiencies to them, attributing deficiencies to God. They're attributing the Trinity, false claim to God, claiming that Jesus is the Son of God. Their worship of Mary, the Trinity. All of these things, the Quran is highlighting. The Quran is highlighting all of these false beliefs. So this is separate from this, is separate from that.
Okay, we'll go in slightly different direction. I genuinely don't know the answer to this, so maybe you would. Is there a place in the Quran where it does correctly articulate the Christian belief of one God existing as three persons?
So the Quran doesn't. The thing about this, the Trinity is. I'll tell you, this is a funny thing. Trinity is not agreed upon and was never agreed upon in Christian history. Okay, there was councils that were made until this day. There's disagreements on the descriptions of the Trinity and the details of the Trinity between different groups and different beliefs. Okay, so you have the idea of the Trinity and you have the heresies. So the Trinity has many forms. You have, for example, belief of the Trinity that you have modalism. You have, for example, partialism. You have a long list that I can show you now. Tens of heresies exist in Christian history. Subordination, tens of heresies. So Christians believe in different forms of threes. Right?
Okay, but those were deemed heresy at the Council of Nicaea, weren't they? That was by the time of the Quran, the Trinity was the dominant view. Modalism wasn't the dominant view anymore.
Yeah, no, even today, there are Christians who don't believe in the Trinity. There are Christians who believe in modalism. There are Christians who believe in partialism. Regardless of the fact that you had a council that was done in 325 in Nicaea, which was specifically about subordination between Arius and Athanasius, where they were arguing whether Jesus subordinate to God or co-equal to God. And then later on, the Holy Spirit came in the picture in 381 in the Council of Constantinople, where they then introduced the Holy Spirit. If you look back, they had all disagreements on who the Holy Spirit was. So you make it seem as if Christians was always in agreement on what the Trinity is and what it entails. They were not.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that.
Okay, so do we agree that Christians had different beliefs of the idea of three?
Different beliefs, yes. But
okay,
I would say that there was...
now, yeah, sorry, you want to finish what you're saying? Yeah.
So by that time, though, post Council of Nicaea, and I guess maybe post Council of Constantinople, there was an overwhelming viewpoint, even if there were people that disagreed. It's true that there might be Christians today that are modalist, but they'd be an overwhelming minority. It would be.
I disagree, actually.
Weird. Really? What denomination is modalist?
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actual Christians. So if you go speak to actual Christians, one by one, because the Christians don't study the creed. I guarantee if you stop 99% of Christians and ask them what is the creed of Nicaea or what is the creed of Constantinople, they have no clue. Have no clue who's arguing. They have no clue what was being said. They don't memorize the creed. But if you start asking about details, you realize that some of them believe in partialism, which is what I do. My videos are the best example when I speak to Christians. Some of them will say that Jesus was a part and the Father was a part. Others will talk about mods. Others will say, well, all of them were the Father. Like, you will have all types of heresies. They themselves don't even know that it's a heresy. They don't know. They think that is the true Christianity. Because it's not like that these people are studying the creed and coming to an agreement to what the belief is. So even though that you have a creed that is codified, it is not what the overwhelming majority believe in because they can't understand the Trinity. Trinity makes no rational sense. They can't even understand it themselves. So because they can, they try to make sense of it in their own mind, in their own way. Okay? So the point is this. So the point is this, coming back to what the Quran is saying. And let's finish here. Because I do think that you're being very, I'm not saying this with respect to you, pedantic and semantical. Because you would agree with something. Yeah, okay, so it's good. Because you have a problem with, which I identified. Yeah. It's you have a problem which I highlighted in the beginning of this discussion, which is hyperskepticism. That's your real issue. I would label you as an atheist really more than I would label you as a Christian. So I think you have this yeah, it's not an insult, it's just how you believe it. So I would say this is really where you are. And that's why you are being this way with the evidences. Because of the issue of being hyper skeptic with every single detail. So I'm gonna finish here on this point, right? So the Quran says that they say Allah is the third of three. So he's the third. He's the last, number 3 of 3. So Allah says, the Christians say that Allah is number 3 of 3. That includes all types of trinities. Yeah, that includes all forms of trinities that you want to talk about. Also, Allah says, do not say 3 in any sense. Allah says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثَ. Do not say 3 in any sense. So any way that the Christians will say 3, or they will say he's the third person of 3, or he's the third mode of 3, or he's whatever third you want to say, or whatever 3 you want to say, Allah refutes them in the Quran. So that will include all types of trinities that exist today and all types of false beliefs that Christians hold. And this is the best thing about the Quran. It's not, if it's only refuting one type of trinity, another person, oh, look, the Quran doesn't refute my type of trinity. It's okay for me to believe this. No, the Quran is refuting all forms of the Trinity. It's strictly affirming monotheism to the one true creator. And there's no 3 when it comes to God. No 3 persons, no 3 modes, no 3 beings in any way, no three in any way, shape, or form.
The one that says God is one of 3, though, that's not Trinitarianism. The only one that does fall into all the Trinities is say, do not say 3. But that's only because it's vague.
Is the Father the third person of 3?
The Father is, yes. But not, isn't that different than saying God is the third person of the 3?
No, but when it says you're saying the third, when it says you're saying the third of 3, it's saying don't say Allah is the third of those 3.
But Trinitarianism, I think, would say that all 3 are Allah. It would not say that Allah is
no,
one.
No, you're actually wrong. What do you mean? No, the Father is one only. He's the third of 3 persons. The Son is a different person. Holy Spirit is a different person. That means you don't understand the Trinity.
Correct. The Father is the third, but all 3 are God. So God isn't one.
But here is not talking about but here is not talking about all 3, or he's not talking about all 3 are gods or no. Just saying don't say Allah is the third of those 3. And Allah here would reference the one true God, not Jesus, not the Holy Spirit, because Allah talks about Jesus when he wants to refer to him, and he talks about the Holy Spirit if he wants to refer to the Holy Spirit. So the Quran here specifically referring to Allah, whom the Christians refer to as the Father, being a third of 3. Okay, and that will include all types of Trinity. It is. Because what Christians call the Father is what we call Allah. Because we have a description of Jesus. We have a description of who Jesus was, and it is not Allah. So we say when Christians refer to God, the God of Abraham, the God of Moses, they call him Allah, Father. This is what we call Allah. That's what Muslims believe. The God of Moses, the God of Abraham, which they call the Father, is whom we call Allah. And there's a distinction between the Son and the Father and the Holy Spirit.
Sure. It doesn't say Father, though. It's just saying that in Islam, only the Father is God, which makes sense because that's the Islamic viewpoint. But that's not.
Okay, I mean, yeah,
right, that doesn't like,
people are getting very impatient with you because they're realizing you're just picking on things which, I'm sorry, with all due respect, are like completely irrelevant to the point that's being made. So they're like, I'm like, guys, be patient with the guy. He's being nice. He's being very polite. Has a nice smile. So I'm like, it's okay. But he can be a little bit skeptical. It doesn't make him a bad person. But I honestly, my advice to you would be to focus a bit on your hyper-skepticism, because you do have that as an issue. And I ask God to guide you. That's all I'm going to say. I've dealt with that same issue with Christians. I have videos on my channel, welcome to watch, where I speak to hyper-skeptics. You'd see they have the same issue that you have. And I usually don't give them that same time. Anyways, I appreciate the discussion, Connor, and appreciate your mannerisms. Hopefully I didn't say anything impolite. It wasn't the intention.
Not at all. Yeah, you're great.
People can get impatient, but a lot of people are saying you're a nice guy, nice man. He has a nice smile. People are like, many of them like you. So hopefully Allah guides you to the truth, inshallah. Yeah, may Allah guide you to the truth. All right, Connor, it's a pleasure talking to you. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
يا دعاة رب السماء يا من صنعتم في الأرض نورا يا قلوبا فيها الوفاء بشركم اليوم السرور